everybody. Thanks for coming. We're really excited to have you here tonight. I'm Ellen Lupton. I'm director of the M.F.A. program in graphic design. Yay. Okay. I also teach on the undergraduate faculty, and I'm director of the Center for Design Thinking, which presents tonight's program. And we're really excited about the publication of 2 more amazing books created by MICA students and faculty collaboratively. So the first one, yes, great, so enthusiasm. The first one is called Graphic Design Thinking. Right, those are the books that we're here to talk about. Graphic Design Thinking was designed, edited, produced, and authored by students in the Graphic Design M.F.A. program, and some of those students are going to speak briefly about some of the content in that book. Participate is written and designed by Helen Armstrong and Zvezdana Stojmirovic, who are both alums of the Graphic Design M.F.A. program here at MICA. Yay! And Svez is currently on the faculty. Yay! And this book is full of work by their students as well as by leading designers from around the world. So very exciting. And so this is part of a publishing program that we've been doing since about 2006, where MICA students and faculty work together to sort of turn our classrooms into research laboratories and to produce books like these, that if you go around the world, you'll see them in bookstores, which to me is like the coolest thing, right? I think it's like when a movie star actually sees their thing in a real theater and not on television, right? So in a real bookstore, it will happen to you. You will see these books, which is really awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a series of rapid-fire presentations. And first, I'm going to invite my graduate students who are representing Graphic Design Thinking to come on up. And yes, here's our talent. Okay. And so we're all just going to share the mic. This thing is fun. I highly recommend it. Feels great. And we'll talk a little bit about the content for the book, and then we're going to pass this awesome mic on to the Participate team, and they will wow you with stuff from their book, right? So there's our book, and there's some of our talented, amazing graphic design MFA students, some of whom are here tonight to share their stuff. And our book is about the process of design, and really what a process is something that takes place in steps over time. And for many of us, creativity is a big mystery, and it's the great, horror of facing a blank page. But when you start to think about any creative act as having a series of steps that you can engage in and become conscious of, it becomes more fun and easy and more creative, and you can be like these people, right? And so here's a beautiful diagram of the design process created by Ann Liu. And it shows you the 3 basic phases of defining a problem, getting ideas, and creating form. And within that, there's dozens of different things you can do to stimulate your brain and your body to make better design, faster, quicker, fleeter, okay? What do you want to do? How are you going to get there? And finally, what's it going to feel like when you go? And I think one of the unique things about our design thinking book, unlike really any other one on the market, is that we actually have a whole section dedicated to form and to what design looks like. So not just the intellectual ideas, but also the beauty and the physical ideas behind design. So we always start with the problem. And brainstorming, you all know what this is, and we called our book Beyond Brainstorming, and we talk about the history of brainstorming and the important rules and ways to be better at it. But we quickly move on to more exciting techniques that you may not be so familiar with, because brainstorming is just the beginning. And now, here's your device.
Hello, I'm Christina Beard, and I'm going to walk you through the process of visual research. So visual research is a really great tool to sort of look at the landscape that you're working in, whether you're designing an identity, a product, or a service. This is an example. 2x4 really embraces this process. So here they're looking at major international companies and just simply looking at the color that these identities are using. And right away you can see that they are dominant in blue. And there's many opportunities to explore other colors. So this is a project that I worked on looking at Mars, just on the topic of Mars. So I collected hundreds of images and then sampled the average color, and then from that distilled a color palette to work with. I also looked at the language used in many different kinds of scientific documents, and then from that I had a distilled couple of words that really talk about the topic in an interesting way. And then the largest one reflects the most used word. And then you're able to just analyze the area that you're working in. So visual research is a really great way to immerse yourself in a world or a product or company, and then that will then help you inform your design process.
Hi, I'm Lauren Adams, and focus groups can help you define a problem, and they're really simple and inexpensive. Oftentimes people are skeptical, designers are skeptical of using focus groups because they think they might kind of squelch the creativity. But in reality, you can use a focus group to better make sure that your design really resonates with the audience. So this project was one that the MICA Center for Design Practice worked on with the Johns Hopkins CARES Mobile Safety Center, which is run by their Public Health Injury and Policy Research Group. So we worked with them, and they really wanted to better create this experience on this mobile safety center. It would go around to block parties and churches and teach about injury prevention in row homes. So we held two focus groups, one in English and one in Spanish, to see how people responded to the safety center. And overwhelmingly, people said they wanted to know what was inside the truck before they actually got on. So in response, we created these posters that were turned into sandwich boards that told people exactly what they were going to do inside. Learn about safety in your home. Other users in this focus group also said that they wanted to know how what they were learning on this truck translated into their individual row homes. So we made these row home diagrams that showed the lessons learned on the truck and then how it would be like in their bedroom. So this was a row home drawing here. And then it showed you potential hazards too. So it showed hazards and then also how you could fix it and the products you could buy. We also wanted to create an experience that was bilingual. So another thing we did was make these triptychs of diagrams of each lesson that taught the potential hazard that actually depicted what could happen with this little guy that we called Nubbins. And then I guess fixed problem. And then we highlighted safety products that they sold on the truck as well. So in short, focus groups don't have to squash your creativity, but instead you can use them to really make sure that your design is appropriate for the audience.
Hey everybody, I'm Ann Liu, and I'm going to talk a little bit about brand books. And the whole purpose of a brand book is really to be a concrete visual to document the language and the attitude of a brand for both internal and external audiences. So this is a great example from the design consultancy Wolf Olins in New York, and they were redesigning or proposing a new design for New York City, which is no easy feat. And here, for the brand book, they show the logo mark, but also the typeface that they created, especially for this competition. But the thing that distinguishes a brand book from a regular standards manual that's just type, logo, and colors is that it manages to capture the spirit and the essence in its sort of body text, but also its imagery. And so because this was encompassing and trying to talk about the spirit and the history of New York, they chose to display these beautiful full bleed photographs of old historic New York and more, everyday images that you would see when you walk around. My favorite is this one, which is sort of like a candid everyday shot of what it would be like to live in New York on a snow day, and you didn't have to go to school. I think this one is one of my favorites because this really shows that through the use of color and pacing, that big black page and that bisected white really shows that Wolf Owens was looking at how they created the essence and the sort of the world of New York City in these pages through their pacing and their choice of photography. This is another brand book done by Wesley here for DeSoto Clothes. And here you can see that the black and white photograph with the patterns and the pop of color, you start to understand the visual language that starts to emerge. But remember that brand books are much more than just imagery. They're also about the verbal language as well. And so this next page is really showcasing that verbal and visual pairing, because when you read Birmingham and Alabama, Wesley, I apologize for my awful Southern accent, but you can understand the American South that emerges out of DeSoto. So a brand book is much more than a standards manual. It's about understanding and communicating an inspirational story and where a brand comes from and what it means.
So the second part of this book is about getting ideas. So now that we've defined a problem, we need to get ideas for how to tackle that problem. And one really fun way of doing that is called action verbs. And basically with action verbs, you take a stale or cliche or like knee-jerk idea and then apply a series of predetermined actions to that idea, and you'll get a whole slew of new ideas. So for example, this designer started with hitting the bullseye. And some of the verbs that he applied to this were invert, so if the arrow came through the backside of this target, or magnify, that led to two solutions, either a giant arrow or a giant bullseye area. Or multiply could mean multiple arrows or multiple targets. All of these ideas, you can see how starting with like this normal imagery of hitting the bullseye can turn into something really creative. So warp, combine, what if they're actually one and the same? Here's another example that I really like. Hang in there, baby, those cat posters that we all grew up with. So what if it's inverted and it's hanging by its tail? Or magnified, maybe it's like a huge branch and a tiny cat. Or stretch, maybe it's a stretchy cat filled with that stuff in Stretch Armstrong. What happens when the cat falls? Maybe it's flattened. So again, starting with the stale idea, applying these preset verbs to it, and then resketching them made all of these new ones. So here, those were just kind of like fun brainstorming sessions, but here's an example of one that was actually used in a logo creation of a toy store. So the designer started with a puzzle piece shape and applied action verbs to it to see if she could sketch a better logo for this toy store. You can see some of her ideas here. I really like the puzzle piece that's being squeezed out of whatever it's sopping up. And then here are the ones she turned into actual propositions for this logo. So you can see the invert has a puzzle on the inside, or magnify and minify create this like family of puzzle pieces. So you can see again how action verbs really transform this cliche idea.
Hi, I'm Wesley Stuckey. this chapter was really about the inevitable question, we're always asked as designers, where do we get our inspiration from? And, the answer is that we find inspiration from all the things that we have experienced in our life. So as an example of showing, where these images kind of combine to make a final piece, back after the devastating earthquake in Haiti, there was a project created called the Haiti Poster Project. And so several people from MICA and all across the country, even the world, sent in posters to raise money for Doctors Without Borders. So this poster was designed by Ryan Shelley, who really looked in lots of places for inspiration, one being that tectonics, rock music, and subway maps all are very visual and have lots of action. And so he created this really dynamic poster emphasizing the time and the magnitude of the earthquake. And so everything's radiating from the epicenter of the actual semicolon of the time. This is the poster that I actually designed, and I pulled my inspiration from the French culture of Haiti, so French toile and the Red Cross and the lens in which we see everything. So the round shapes obviously are very indicative to the camera lens and the world view, while the Red Cross is actually made out of text that spells out Haiti, and it actually has the date beneath it. And the toile illustration is actually of the countryside of Haiti, right by the ocean, where parts of it actually fell into the ocean. So, the main thing is that as a designer, you keep a database of everything that you see, and everywhere you go, you're always consuming information, other people's designs, everything that you see, even the color of the chairs in these rooms, may find its way into your next project. So never shut something out just because you're not familiar with it. So just keep everything from everywhere.
So the last part is the best part. That's creating form. And I agree that this is the most fun part of the book. And so here I'm going to talk about kit of parts. And I'll be honest, this is my favorite kind of design. Because it's really about creating a system and a vocabulary that can be recombined in like a ton of different ways. The great example here is from Andrew Volvelt of the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis. And when they sat down to decide how they were going to do the identity system, what they really wanted was an open-ended system. And they really wanted to avoid the sort of static logo type that's typical of a lot of cultural institutions. And so here you can see that there's a lot of like squiggly marks and patterns, overlaying colors, and it's just one really fun and playful thing. And when you're working in an in-house design firm, it's really difficult to come up with the same stuff if it's across like 6 or 7 people. But a kit of parts can help sort of remedy that problem, because what Andrew and his team did is they created a system of ornaments from within a digital typeface that they could just type out on the keyboard and then recombine, recolor, and thus they were able to create this really diverse system. So you can see there's like chevrons, arrows, dots, and lines, and it really reflects the diverse programs of the Walker Art Center itself. So in the end, what they were able to do is really create this really huge diverse pool of patterns, images, colors that can be applied through tape, bags, programs, and it becomes a living and breathing organism that can change and morph and be deconstructed and reconstructed in many ways, and really beneficial to work across people. And it all relates to one another because everything is coming from the same place. Here's another great example. So you can see there's stone bullets, arrowheads, and fern leaves, and it goes all the way from photographic to vectorized. And the designer here decided to create this floral motif, and what ends up being is this sort of really elegant, beautiful piece, but it's kind of sinister too if you think about the source material of the arrowheads and the bullets. And so they all relate to one another because of those source materials, but you can see the really diverse kinds of imagery she can create. And lastly, this is a really beautiful kit of parts from the motion graphics firm Hush. They were creating a documentary about the future of Detroit, and as a big collaborative team, they were trying to figure out how to do it. And so here they developed this color palette of textures, lines, patterns, and you can start to see how they all combine. And this is a really great example of how the kit of parts can be useful across many different kinds of visuals. So at the bottom, you can see the landscape, but at the top, it's a map. But they're still feel of the same because they're all using those same libraries of patterns and lines and colors. So in the end, designing a kit of parts is really creating a system that you can use as a tool in your design process, and use this tool either individually, but it's a really easy way to do it for collaborative work too.
All right, so we're going to turn it over to Participate. Thank you very much.
Welcome, everyone. First, we'd like to really quickly thank our host institutions. Participate was a book that was created between two schools. I want to thank MICA and
Yeah,
Helen.
and I wanted to thank Miami University for all the support for our project, and special thanks to Peg Feynman and my students who came here from Ohio to be a part and put up the exhibition.
We'd also really like to thank Brockett Horn for her support of our project, and Ellen Lupton for her mentorship and for writing the foreword to our book. So, Participate really started by us observing a major cultural shift. We recognize that users of graphic design are now becoming the makers of graphic design.
We realized that consumers were becoming producers, that all of a sudden everyone wanted to be a part of the making process. Not just designers, but everybody.
Now, this was not a new idea by any means. There were art movements, esoteric art movements from the 60s, like situationism and mail art, were very participatory by nature. But what was happening, what we recognized was happening was that these kinds of ideas were moving front and center into the mainstream.
But why is this happening right now?
Well, for one, social media. People are now expecting to fill out templates and to provide content, and they're doing this daily.
The means of production and distribution are in the hands of the people. So on-demand services, Lulu, Threadless, Etsy, Spoonflower. People can can produce and distribute and promote their own books, textiles, products, websites. There's no large barrier in their way. They no longer need large investments of capital to undertake these types of projects.
So this book looks at how graphic design is changing, how as designers we're no longer called to only provide finished products, but also to set up flexible frameworks where others can actually take part in the making.
We structured our book around 4 concepts that we feel inform participatory design. And the first is community. Participation builds community.
Modularity makes participation possible, because if you break down your work into modular pieces, that allows other people that allows for other people to contribute.
Flexibility, rethinking projects more as templates that invite contribution rather than finished products.
And the fourth big concept is technology. It makes participation easy, well, when it works. So tonight we're honored to give you some snippets of the amazing content and the works of designers that have contributed to the book, with short presentations by these awesome people who are all designers, and some of them are students and designers. And they are Aggie Toppins, who is an MFA student here in the graphic design program. Following her will be Chris Hurley, who is an undergrad in the program, a third-year student in the graphic design program. And then we have Keetra Dean Dixon and J.K. Keller, who are partners and designers, and Keetra is on the faculty here at MICA. And then to top it all off, we have Nolan Strauss and Bruce Willen from Post Typography and also MICA faculty. So why don't we just get started with that?
Thank you. Oh. Hi, my name's Aggie, and I'm a graduate student here at MICA in the graphic design program. And what I like about participatory design is building meaning through collaboration. So I'm going to share a couple of my projects that explore this. This project's called Implied World, and it's a work of collaborative mapping that I showed at a gallery earlier this year. And the way it worked is I projected a map of the world onto a pull-down screen and gave participants little map dot stickers and markers, and they charted all the places they had been in the world. And then after so many people did it, I shut off the projection, and this form appeared, which I thought was interesting to see how the shape of the world emerged from the specific experiences of these people. So if I did this in another place, it would probably look really different. That's the US. This project is a zine that I designed this year, and took sort of a critical eye to concepts like interconnectivity and prosumerism as things that are germane to participatory culture. And I just sort of made a case that everything that we experience in life from the beginning to the end is mediated through templates, including how we date. So there's some stuff on online dating and the way that we use templates when we die. So this page here shows a bunch of headstones that I designed using a do-it-yourself website where you can actually ship for free to a cemetery near you. And so just to keep going with the absurdity of all this, I also made a paint-by-number cemetery, which I displayed in a gallery opening earlier this year as well. And people filled in the paint-by-number on site. And I gave away copies of the zine with this because this also appears in the zine. So this is kind of what it looked like towards the end of the night. And I wanted to share a couple things that I like about this. One of my favorite parts about participatory work is that people often break rules, that even within a strict template-based structure, people find ways to be individuals. And Banksy here started a conversation that caught on. And so a lot of people started customizing this particular tool. And that's what I really love about this kind of work, because I can't design for this, but I can kind of expect that it will happen. And it's really sort of it's like another layer of communication between other people through the work. And so that makes me really happy. So what I'm doing now as a graduate student, I'm working on my thesis, and I'm using participation less as a form generation tool and more as a strategic tool. So these are some lovely people that I talked to in my thesis project, which is asking the question, how do people memorialize? And I've been talking to people just to get their ideas in the hopes that their insights will lead to design opportunities. So participation can be a strategy for coming up with ways to solve a problem. And then the last thing I want to share with you is a co-creational exercise I'm doing right now, so I have no idea how this is going to turn out, for my thesis project, and it's called Story in a Jar. And it's essentially, I give 20 jars away and ask people to fill the jar with common objects that tell a story about someone they love. So it remains to be seen if this is successful or not, but come to the thesis exhibitions in the spring and we'll see. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Hurley, and I'm an undergrad student. I'm a junior, and I was in Zvezdana's GD1 class a year ago. And I like to say we're kind of her guinea pigs for the book. We did a lot of participatory stuff that related to what she was writing about. But first, I kind of want to ask a question to the audience, and you don't really have to answer. You don't have to raise your hand or anything. Just something to think about while I'm talking, which is, would you consider yourself a control freak? Because I know I do. I am. I'm pretty bad. And I find that a lot of my friends here at MICA are as well. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that it makes sense. It's allowed. We we're artists, we're designers, we make things and we want to have control over what we're making. And this post project that Zvezdana had us do in GD1 completely destroyed that with me. I was not allowed to have control whatsoever. And basically how the project worked is we were given a letter, and we had to design a part of that letter, like an element of the letter, and then pass it on to another designer, and they'd design a part, and then they'd pass it on, and they would design a part. And so it was almost like a design assembly line. That's how I think of it. It was a very strict deadline of only 24 hours, so we didn't have a lot of time to think about the design. We just straight up and did it. And we ended up making work such as this O, this letter. And I found that with most of the letters, I didn't particularly like the whole thing. It was very, it wasn't cohesive and it didn't have a lot of design. But I studied them really closely, and I found elements of the design that I really enjoyed, such as this. Same letter, just a different piece of it. And I have a couple other examples with this one and that. And then with this piece, that top corner. And I find that through studying these pictures that my peers and I have designed together, I find them influencing my work in the future. And it was really nice because we ended up making a video that we pretty much copied and pasted all the images together and came up with this. And with this video, it allowed me to see the progression of how all these each individual elements were built and made, and I really enjoyed seeing that. And I guess I'm just going to stop because it loops on forever. I guess my leading thought would be that if you are a control freak like I am, to kind of see what happens when you lose that control and let go a little bit, because you'll end up finding that if you're working with others and just without that control, that you will be making beautiful things. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello. I'm JK.
I'm Keitra.
This is Keitra.
I don't.
Oh, you have to get out of ours.
We have to escape something.
Could I have some technical help?
And then your keynote somewhere down. That's you, right? Or is that you?
This.
That's me.
And then that's.
Hey.
Cool. Great.
Okay. Hello. First, I want to say thanks for including us in the book. It's a great honor. So usually when JK and I are approaching participatory work, oh, you can see the little play thing there, that's professional. We usually approach it by presenting half of a narrative or kind of part of the discourse, and then require an interaction from the audience to complete that narrative.
And so we like to call this sharing the conversation. And in the past, we've kind of placed an emphasis on creating an experience or a moment that results in more of a formal exploration or a formally focused product. But recently we've been looking at communication as a sort of means of complex participatory works.
And so we're trying to leverage the complexity of communication and the translation of that. And for those moments, we think that sharing the complication is a more appropriate title. So recently, I got to meet a designer named Jonathan Puckey, who's fantastic. He does lots of participatory work, and he's also included in the book. And he was telling me about this quick study that he had done using the idea of a recursive sentence structure and having workers interpret or translate that recursive structure utilizing Amazon's Mechanical Turk platform.
So I'll just talk about what Amazon Mechanical Turk is. It's the name comes from this thing called the Turk, which is an 18th century Hungarian chess-playing automaton.
Automaton.
Automaton, yeah.
I like how you
Something
said
like
it,
that.
though.
Anyway, it's close. And so this played against like Napoleon and beat him, and Ben Franklin and beat him. And the trick was that actually there was a guy inside who was a chess master, so it wasn't really a robot. And so that's where the name comes from. And so Amazon created this system that is a crowdsourcing service called Amazon Mechanical Turk. And it facilitates the completion of human intelligence tasks, or HITs, that are things that computers are just still not able to do. So like writing a review of something, or picking the best photograph, things like that. And so you can either be a requester, someone who wants a task completed, or you can be a worker, and that is someone who completes tasks for a fee, which is usually a small amount, depending on what it is. So the nice thing is that you can leverage large amounts of people and the work that they can do really, really easily, and for small amounts of, well, relatively small amounts of money.
Yeah.
So that's...
And so what Jonathan Puckey was doing with that recursive sentence structure, I thought was the really interesting part. I also think that the Amazon's Mechanical Turk is a fantastic platform, which is kind of why we wanted to share it with you guys. Use it, it's so cool. But I thought that the actual translation kind of exploited the variations on interpretation of language and possibly instruction, depending on how you wrote the instructions for the person to interpret. And I thought it could be a lovely device to cause a poetic evolution of content. So I kind of replicated this process, or adapted the idea to an analog format, a very fancy hooded clipboard. And I asked members of a course that I teach here at MICA called the Process Lab to execute the instructions that were specified on the platform. And here are the instructions. So essentially, I asked them to rewrite the last sentence on the page to have an opposite meaning, and then move the strip down so only the most recent sentence that they had written was revealed. And we just wanted to share the results with you. So here we go.
That's the start.
That's the start. And now we're back at the beginning again. That was lovely. Okay, the end. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Bruce.
Oh, you need to escape.
Hit escape, yeah.
And then
Working on
down at the
okay.
bottom right, duck.
We were bad collaborators. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
It should be here.
There we go. Awesome. Oops, that's the end. So we're actually going to try and share our complication with you tonight. What is? I'll try not to do this. So we actually need everybody to turn on their cell phones for this if you've turned them off, which of course you did before you came into the program. So while everybody's doing that, we're going to conduct, if you will, a little experiment that we're calling the Pocket Orchestra. And to make this work, we need to start off by dividing you into the left and right half. And since most people are sitting over here, I think starting, everyone on this side of the room, you're the left. Or, sorry, right, I mean. The orange half. You're the right. You guys are the right half, and you're the left half. That's the right. Okay, so now that we've figured that out, how many of you on the left half have iPhones? If you could raise your hand. Okay, now remember this, because this is your group. You are the left iPhones. Okay, those of you who don't have iPhones, please raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up because you're going to be the click pens group. And yeah, keep your, Nolan's going to be passing out the click pens. And keep your hands up, and while he's doing that, those of you on the right half of the auditorium, how many of you have iPhones? All right, you're the right iPhones group. And how many of you have a different type of cell phone? All right, great. You're the all other cell phones group. So now that we have that figured out, so while Nolan finishes passing out the pens, those of you with your phones, we need to make sure that your volume is turned all the way up. And actually, we're just keeping the click pens on the left half. Sorry about that. The people who don't have the iPhones over here, you are the other phones. So, okay, while we're doing that, yeah, go to your settings, turn your volume all the way up. Under iPhones, you'll go to sounds. If you're on another phone, you'll probably go to your menu, click sounds, sound settings. Good job. Turn off the vibrate, turn up the volume all the way. And then find your ringtone, or the ringtones menu on the iPhone. And if you're using one of the other cell phones, go find which one you're using. All right. Okay, so the left iPhones, you're going to be playing the ringtone Bell Tower, which you will find as one of the default ringtones if you haven't deleted it. Excellent. And those of you on the right iPhones, you will be playing digital. And those of you who have other phones, you'll be playing your current ringtone, whatever it is, even if it's really embarrassing. So, all right. Okay, let's hold on. Oh, and for just a second, and then those with the click pens will get to you in just a sec. So, all right, left iPhones, we're just gonna give, we're gonna do just a little practice session, and then we're gonna get into it. So, you're gonna be watching this quadrant of the screen up here, all of you on the left, and whenever this happens, you're going to play Bell Tower and repeat it. So go ahead and test it out. Bell Towers. All right. And you're just going to keep repeating it until it says stop, and then you can just let go. All right. Yeah. Right iPhones watch that quadrant of the screen, and the same deal, when it does this, you'll play digital. Awesome. And then until it says stop. All right. Now someone's getting an actual call. And okay, and all the other cell phones, you'll be watching this quadrant of the screen, and you get a countdown, because we want everyone to start at the same time, as close as possible. All right. So, but just play your ringtone once. You don't repeat yours, and then stop it if you can. All right. So those of you with the click pens, you're going to have, this is kind of the hardest task because you're going to have to try and keep up a rhythm. And so you get your big boys bail bonds pen, or if you have your own click pen, you can use that as well. And we're going to try and follow the rhythm on the screen as best we can, which it's actually, I found it's a little easier with these pens to, if you sort of hit it really hard rather than just use your thumb, so. All right, and if you get off, it's okay, but just try and sort of follow back along and see if you can catch up. So keep working at it for a second until you are reasonably close. Done. Okay, so keep it up, like keep doing the click pens, and now we're gonna get started. So everybody else, watch your quadrant of the screen for your cues, and I'm gonna stop talking and we're gonna get started. Hold on. Wait for your cue. Thanks. Give yourselves a round of applause.
Okay, thanks everybody. That was super great. If you have a book and you would like additional signatures from all the celebrity presenters tonight, we will hang out here at the base of the auditorium for a few minutes, and then we'll go upstairs and see if there are any cookies left.
And on your way out tonight, feel free to take some coasters and to take some balloons with you. Thank you.
So an applause for all of our presenters and all the other students and designers and authors who are in the audience tonight. A lot of you participated, and especially applause for our special guests from Miami University of Ohio. Welcome to MICA.